Ever since the groundbreaking news that WWE Raw will be moving to Netflix, there were some serious questions asked about the WWE Network and why they didn't simply just move it to that. Looks like those questions have been answered. Well, back to Fog Wrestling, and it looks like at the end of this year, according to reports, the WWE Network will cease to exist. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to dive straight into this. There's also a lot of news about the USA Network because apparently the deal wraps up with them before the January deal comes into play with Netflix, which just means that Raw is stuck in limbo here for 3 months potentially, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, Dave Meltzer, everybody's favourite Dave Meltzer, who came into a lot of heat earlier on today because he said Eddie Kingston's every bit as good as Gunther, and then some guy replied saying, I can't take Chop serious for a guy with a beer belly, to which Dave Meltzer replied, Gunther used to have a beer belly and his chops were meteor when he had a beer belly. He used the term meteor. What's that all about? Anyway, this is what the WWE Network has in store because, of course, that Netflix contract, $5 billion over 10 years. There's a lot of money in WWE. And before we get into this whole network thing being discontinued, I don't know how WWE is going to work on on Netflix, right? You go on Netflix, you click on a show, right? They're all in like categories. But if you click on Breaking Bad, for example, that's like the only good TV show left on Netflix. You know, you've got your season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. How is WWE going to be on Netflix? Like ECW, like is WWE going to have its own separate category, or is it going to be spread sporadically throughout Netflix? Like, could you be scrolling down WrestleManias in one section, then SummerSlams in another, then SmackDowns in another, then Raws in another? I'm not too sure how it's going to work. I think with this going to Netflix, there is going to be so much stuff cut from the network. Well, I mean, according to this report, the network's getting cut, but the network's got a lot of content, old pay-per-views, all the libraries. I've got a feeling with this Netflix deal, a lot of it's going to come crashing down. And I'm not suggesting that they're going to get rid of all the pay-per-views and even the Raw and SmackDowns, but I could see some stuff being cut. And I just don't understand how the navigation is going to work on Netflix with it. For me, WWE's going to have its own category. You click on it, and then it like gives you all the options. Netflix doesn't have that though. Yeah, it's got categories in terms of horror, action, adventure, RPG, other things like that. But I don't really understand how it's going to go. We'll have to wait and see until January next year. But until then, it's all speculation until they confirm it. But Dave Meltzer said in March 2026, when the Peacock deal ends, the US aspect of it, which one would think Netflix would want, given that Netflix is going to take over everything else in the world. But pretty much the United States, and I think elsewhere, they've already signed that. Middle East, India might be that also, but for most of the world, they're going to take over the WWE Network. WWE Network itself, which does exist outside the United States, will be folding at the end of the year, and Netflix will pick up the content. So a lot of people have asked, will they pick up all the content? You know, all the archives? I don't know, but will they be the sole source of that? You know, the archival content of all the old territories and all the old stuff on the old WWE Network. You know, that will be the Netflix outside of the United States in January. So, like I just talked about, that's the end of the quote, by the way. What's the network going to look like on Netflix? It's like I said, you're probably going to get about, I'd say you're probably going to get about a fifth of the content on Netflix that you do now. You'll probably get all the current shit. You'll probably get all the WWE stuff, but like All South Pro Wrestling for like 1983, is that going to be on Netflix? No, I doubt it will be, and I wouldn't blame them. So yeah, so obviously America, it looks like the deal runs out March 26th, but this year is when it runs out outside of North America. So that could be a bit of a disaster. But let's talk about the disaster that's awaiting the USA Network, because, of course, the contract actually expires on the 30th of September. And an official from the network stated that they will not be airing Raw for the last 3 months of 2024. End of an era, because Raw's been on USA Network for a lot of years. Dave Meltzer has discussed the situation again. And I quote, I guess the unanswered question is what happens to Raw after the end of September of this year, because in January it's going to Netflix. At the end of September, the contract is up. USA Network has told Brandon Forston that they are not airing it after the end of September, so it's not like they're going to give 3 more months on USA. WWE told me they will make an announcement relatively soon about that, so they have. I guess they have something. What it is, I don't know. Maybe they'll go with Netflix early. I'm not really sure. End of quote. Talks with Warner Brothers. I mean, could they simply just move Raw to the network for the last like 3 months till the Netflix deal's up and running. I'm not too sure. Like it says there, you could just bring the Netflix deal um, forward by a few months. Either way, if the wrestling on screen ain't entertaining, it looks like behind the scenes is going to be. It looks like these deals are just chaotic. We don't really know what's going to go down at the end of this year. But here, I'm all for chaos. Controversy creates cash. And again, if you like Nitro and ECW, is all that stuff going to be brought to Netflix? I doubt it now. There is a few memes floating about, you bored? Let's just slap on ECW One Night Stand. Because, of course, if you're not a die-hard wrestling fan, obviously there will be fans that stop watching that still have the network for the old stuff, but not like the average person that just has Netflix worldwide could be flicking through and be like, oh, don't watch WrestleMania for 20 odd years ago. One Night Stand 2005. That's the good side of this deal. The bad side is how much is going to be available. But until next time, your thoughts down below, and peace.